After my husband gave his mother a key to our home and helped her destroy my life, I exposed their lies with the police at my doorstep. When I opened my front door, I didn't notice the strewn documents or the toppled furniture right away. It was the quietness, that oppressive, strange hush that envelops you like a veil of death and whispers that something is gravely amiss. My name is Audrey, and I recently attended a 3-day business retreat where I learned how to trust my coworkers through absurd team-building activities. Now that I'm standing in my cluttered living room, I see that I should have prioritized trusting my own family more. As I called Ryan's phone, my fingers were shaking. Voicemail's recognizable click is heard after 1 or 2 rings. Naturally, my beloved husband was most likely at his mother's place, acting as though he had no idea why his wife had called. "Ryan, someone broke into the house. The safe is open, call me back immediately." I cataloged the damage as I wandered through the wreckage of my home. The couch cushions were cut open, drawers were pulled out and emptied, and picture frames were placed face down. However, they hadn't been searching for cash or valuables. This was personal, no. My grandmother's letters, the only remnants of her that I still possessed, were the first thing they targeted. It buzzed on my phone. Not Ryan. Evan at work. He inquired, "How's the drive back?" "Someone broke into my house," I said, shaking my voice. "The safe. They knew the combination." "Jesus, are you okay? Do you need me to come over?" I tossed away a ripped magazine and said, "No. I know exactly who did this. Helen's fingerprints are all over this mess. She's been trying to get those letters for months." "Your mother-in-law? Why would she?" I arrived at the kitchen, where all the cabinets were empty, and said, "Because she can't stand that Ryan married someone who won't bow to her every whim. She thinks those letters prove my grandmother's family wronged hers decades ago, some ancient real estate dispute she won't let die." When Evan said, "Call the police." "And tell them what?" "That my mother-in-law used a key my husband probably gave her to steal family documents. That my sister-in-law probably helped because she's bitter about her divorce and wants to hurt someone else's marriage." Though it sounded empty, I chuckled. "They're too smart for that. They'll say Ryan gave them permission. It'll be my word against the entire Miller family." The door to the basement was ajar. I had not yet looked down there. "I have to go, Evan. I need to see what else they took." "Audrey, wait." After hanging up, I went down the stairs. My feet creaked with every stride. More mayhem was shown when the basement light flicked on. However, I noticed a tiny piece of paper stuck behind a toppled box. I managed to liberate it. It was a 3-day-old receipt for a duplicate key from the hardware store. Once more, my phone buzzed. "Ryan." Before I could say anything, he inquired, "Where are you?" "At Mom's," it was his words. "Listen, Audrey, I can explain." "Did you give her a key?" "Quiet." "Afterwards. She just wanted to look for some old family photos while you were away. I didn't think." "You never do think when it comes to her, do you?" I clenched my fist around the receipt. Those letters were all I had left of my grandmother, Ryan. The only things that were truly mine. "We can talk about this when I get home." "No." The word was piercing enough to pierce. "We'll talk about this in front of everyone. I'm coming over there right now. And Ryan, tell your mother to prepare for war." After hanging up, I stood in my basement, surrounded by the ruins of faith. Like everyone else in their lives, they believed they could break me and force me to submit to their authority. However, they were unaware of what they had just begun. Sometimes the opponent who knows how to hit back harder is more dangerous than the one who hits first. My skin crawled when I saw Helen's immaculate living room. While my house was in ruins across town, everything else was in its proper place, not even a cushion out of place. Helen's interpretation of reality was depicted through the carefully chosen family images on her walls, which conveyed the story of Ryan and Khloe's early years. There aren't any photos of my wedding day in them. Helen poured tea into exquisite cups, her voice dripping with honeyed, delicious poison. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she said. "Ryan gave me permission to look for old family albums while you were away, nothing more." With her arms folded and her wedding ring noticeably missing, Khloe sat next to her mother. "You're being hysterical, Audrey, as usual." I put the receipt from the hardware store on the coffee table. "Funny how you needed a new key made 3 days ago. Planning ahead?" Eyes flitting between his mother and myself, Ryan shifted in his seat and said, "Maybe we should all calm down." "Oh, we're very calm," I remarked as I observed Helen's immaculately manicured fingers encircling her teacup. "Just like we were calm last Christmas when you went through my phone while I was sleeping. Or last month, when you showed up unannounced at my office to check on me. When Helen said, 'I worry about my son. Someone needs to look out for his interests.' His interests? I laughed till my throat ached from the broken glass. Or yours? Mother was right about you from the start. Khloe's eyes shone as she leaned forward. You never understood our family, always keeping secrets, hiding things in that safe of yours. Those letters belong to my grandmother. Letters that prove your family cheated ours 60 years ago. Helen's mask broke. That property should have been ours. Your grandmother knew exactly what she was doing when she, Ryan warned, but it was too late. Slowly, the pieces clicked into place as I stood up. So you admit you took them? Helen's face suddenly became smoother. I admitted nothing. And you have no proof. With my hand hovering over the record button, I took out my phone and said, You're right. But I will. Ryan, are you coming home or staying here? He glanced at his mother, then at me, constantly conflicted, always taking the easy route. I think maybe we all need space to cool off. I paused to glance back at Helen before making my way to the door, saying, Wrong answer. You know what's funny? Those letters you stole? They're not even the originals. Just copies I kept as decoys. Grandmother taught me well. Always keep what matters most where manipulative people can't reach it. The clatter of Helen's teacup against its saucer was heard. You're lying. I asked. Am I? Guess you'll have to wonder about that, along with what else I might have hidden away. I looked into Ryan's eyes. Don't bother coming home tonight, or maybe ever. He started to get up but Khloe grabbed his arm and said, Audrey, wait. She urged. Let her go. She's just trying to manipulate you, like always. I left Helen's well-organized world behind and made my way to my car. I held the steering wheel with trembling hands, but not because of terror. As I had previously stated, the originals were secure because they had been kept in a safety deposit box ever since I married Ryan and seen Helen's hunger when Grandma's letters were brought up during the wedding. It buzzed on my phone. Evan once more. He inquired, how bad was it? They fell for the ruse. Helen essentially admitted it. I started the engine, but I have another task for you. Remember that security system you installed at your lake house? The one with the hidden cameras? Yeah, why? Because I'm done playing defense. They want to go through my things. Let's make sure we catch them in the act next time. As I backed away, I noticed Helen's house become smaller in my rear-view mirror. And Evan, thank you for being the one person in my life who actually listens. Always. But Audrey, just be careful. People like that, they're most dangerous when they're cornered. With plans already racing through my head, I hung up the phone. Helen believed she knew everything there was to know about me. She understood me well. She had overlooked one important fact, though. I had observed her influence everyone for 3 years. It was time to apply the principles I had acquired from the greatest. Although it wasn't my typical location, the coffee shop across from Helen's preferred hairdresser offered me the ideal view. After 2 hours of observing, Evan moved into the seat across from me and pushed a brand new cup in my direction. His words, the cameras are set up. Motion sensors, night vision, everything feeding directly to your phone. But are you sure about this? I gestured to the window of the salon where Helen and Khloe were sitting, receiving their weekly manicures. I hit the play button on my phone and said, Listen. During our confrontation, the bug I had placed in Helen's handbag allowed me to hear their voice as well. Helen was stating, We need those original letters. That safety deposit box has to be at her bank downtown. Ryan says she's been going through their financial records, said Khloe. Probably planning to divorce him and take everything. She yelled, Over my dead body, Helen. I didn't spend 30 years building this family's reputation to have her destroy it. We're going back to the house tomorrow while she's at work. There has to be something we can use against her. I put an end to the recording. Still think I'm paranoid? Evan's expression stiffened. We should take this to the police and tell them? I put my hands around the steaming cup and said, And tell them what? That my mother-in-law is planning to rob me? They'll say it's a family matter. Besides, I want more than just stopping them. I want them to face consequences for once in their privileged lives. It buzzed on my phone. Ryan. I'm calling once more. For the 3rd time today. I turned it down. He's been sleeping at their house, I said. Probably plotting with them, trying to figure out where the originals are. Or maybe he's worried about you. My coffee tasted unpleasant, so I said, Then he should have worried before giving them a key to our house. Before choosing them over me again. Ryan texted. Come home, please. We must speak. Home, I whispered. Like that means anything anymore? Evan bent over. Audrey, I know you're hurt, but The entrance of the salon chimed. Helen and Khloe came out with shiny new manicures. Helen stopped and stared straight into the coffee shop window as they made their way to her Mercedes. I remained motionless, unable to breathe. Her mouth formed the sly smirk I had come to despise. She was aware that I was observing. I said, "Time to go," and suddenly stood up. "They'll be at my house tomorrow at 10 o'clock, according to their usual schedule. That's when we'll catch them." Evan's eyebrows went up. "I thought you wanted to handle this yourself." "I did. I do." I collected my belongings, my hands trembling a little. "I can't face them alone anymore. I need someone in my corner. Always." He lightly touched my arm. "Just promise me something. Don't let revenge consume you. I've seen what it does to people." As I watched Helen's car drive away, I thought back to our wedding reception, when she had cornered me in the restroom and first revealed her true nature. "You'll never be good enough for this family," she'd stated. "One day, Ryan will realize that." I informed Evan, "This isn't about retaliation. It's about justice. And maybe saving Ryan from them, even if he doesn't want to be saved." Once more, my phone buzzed. A message from an unidentified number. When I opened it, my blood froze. "Found something interesting in your grandmother's old law firm records. Tomorrow noon, Riverside Park. Come alone, or Ryan learns everything about the Anderson case." Evan saw my face. "What's wrong?" With my thoughts racing, I closed the message. My grandmother's greatest regret, the secret she carried to her grave, and the true cause of Helen's animosity toward our family was the Anderson case. "Nothing," I pretended to smile. "Just work stuff. I should go prepare for tomorrow." But Helen's comments from 3 years ago kept repeating in my mind as I made my way to my car. "Ryan will understand it one day." Perhaps she was correct. Perhaps he would tomorrow. Perhaps it was time for him to do so. At lunchtime, Riverside Park appeared different, somehow cooler. Holding a manila envelope containing ammunition for whatever game Helen was playing, I sat on a bench. The case files of Anderson. Decades ago, my grandma had sealed them away. In my hands now, they were a weapon. A shadow landed on my lap. Not Helen. Ryan. "My mother told me everything," he claimed. He sat next to me, keeping a safe distance from me. "About the Anderson case. About what your grandmother did to our family." It felt like a heavier envelope. "Did she tell you how your grandfather tried to blackmail mine? How he threatened to destroy their law firm unless they gave him that property?" "That's not," he paused, face rubbing. "She said you'd try to twist things, like she twisted you." I looked over at him. "When did you give her the safe combination, Ryan?" His silence was sufficient response. I went on. "The day after our wedding. When she convinced you I was hiding something. That's why you've been checking our bank statements, right? Looking for evidence I'm stealing from you." I was protecting our family. "Our family?" I laughed, but my voice didn't sound like it. "There is no our family. There's only ever been yours." It buzzed on my phone. Regarding the cameras he had set, Evan was messaging. Everything was prepared for the trap of tomorrow. All of a sudden, though, it felt empty. "She's using you," I whispered. "She always has. And you let her, because it's easier than standing up to her. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I dropped the envelope on his lap and stood up. "Here. The precious Anderson case files. Proof that your grandfather was the one who committed fraud, not mine. Proof that your mother's been lying all these years." He gazed intently at the envelope. "How did you get them?" "From my grandmother's old partner. Turns out, he's been waiting years for someone to finally expose the truth." I took a step back. "But you know what? Keep them. Burn them. Give them to Helen. I don't care anymore. Audrey, wait. I filed for divorce yesterday." The words hung like broken glass between us. Ryan's face turned white. "You what?" "Check your email. The papers should arrive today." Now my hands were steady. "I'm done being the villain in Helen's story. Done watching you choose them over me. Done pretending we have a marriage worth saving." He approached me as he rose up and said, "We can fix this. I'll talk to Mother." "That's exactly the problem," I said, stepping back from his contact. "Your first instinct is still to run to her. It always will be." Once more my phone buzzed. This time, "Helen. Where are you? We had a deal." I returned the type. "The deal has changed. Inquire about the files with Ryan." "You can't just throw away 3 years of marriage," Ryan stated. I started to go, but stopped when I heard, "You already did that when you gave them the key to our house. You know what the saddest part is? I actually thought I could save you from them. But you don't want to be saved. Audrey. Goodbye, Ryan. I passed the seat where we used to have Sunday lunches and the location where he had proposed as I strolled through the park. Helen, Ryan, and even Khloe were all buzzing on my phone. I made them all quiet. Only Evan's message was received. The cameras are in real time. Do you still intend to carry out tomorrow's plan? At the park's exit, I paused and took one final glance back. Ryan appeared disoriented as he stood where I had left him, holding the package tightly. My determination faltered for a second. Then I recalled the broken safe, the broken house, and the 3 years of gaslighting and deceptive tactics. Yes, I did reply to the text. However, plans changed. I no longer only wished to catch them in the act. What are you looking for? I observed as Ryan, who was constantly rushing back to Mother, took out his phone and most likely called Helen. I typed, I want to destroy them, each and every one. Because sometimes destroying everything and starting anew is the only way to save yourself. I was sitting in my car across the street when the security camera feed flashed on my laptop screen. Helen's typical Thursday morning interruption is 10 minutes away. Every aspect of my property, including the front and back doors as well as the garden walk Helen loved to criticize, was caught by Evan's intricate setup. From the passenger seat, Evan said, "You don't have to watch this. We can just let the cameras record." My coffee cup made my fingers whiten. I need to see it. Need to know exactly how they do it. Helen's Mercedes smoothly came to a stop in front of my house on time. Khloe followed her out, as always immaculately styled. Then a third door opened, and Ryan appeared. In my hands, the coffee cup crumbled. He is assisting them. They went to the main door. Ryan looked over his shoulder anxiously. Helen gestured angrily as she spoke. He produced his original key, not the duplicate. Jesus, whispered Evan. Audrey, maybe we should wait. As a fourth figure stepped out of Helen's car, I took hold of his arm. Who is that? With a briefcase in hand, the man in the pricey suit walked with authority. Somehow, he looked familiar. That's James Morton, Evan announced. Helen's lawyer. I've seen him at charity events. The group vanished within my home. I flipped between camera angles, seeing them navigate places with unsettling resemblance. Helen led them as a general would lead soldiers. She said, "The study," clearly audible over the covert microphones. "Those Anderson files have to be here somewhere." Mother, added her. She said she gave them to me. Ryan made a feeble protest. Copies, obviously. Helen yelled, "You think your wife would give up her only leverage? Search everything." Once more I saw them tearing up my house. However, things were different this time. This time, I noticed that Ryan was opening drawers with trembling hands. As Khloe knocked books from the shelves, I noticed her smug smile. I witnessed Helen's disguise come off when she believed no one was looking, exposing her true desperation. Morton said, "Behind the safe," without warning. "Did you check behind it?" I gasped. The safe on the wall had been a ruse. There was nothing back there, but everyone was aware of it. Too soon, Ryan answered. "No, there's nothing back there." Helen squinted her eyes. "Move it, Mother, move it." My fingers hovered above 911 as I reached for my phone. The prior owner had installed a secret compartment behind that safe. There were documents within that showed Helen's own financial misdeeds, which were considerably more devastating than the Anderson case. Compiled with care over 3 years of observation and anticipation. Ryan took a step forward, then halted. "No," he replied. Helen turned against him asking, "What did you say?" "I said no," he said more firmly. "This ends now. We're leaving." Helen's composure broke when she asked, "After everything I've done for you?" "That woman has poisoned you against your own family," Ryan remarked. "That woman is my wife." "Not anymore," Morton cut in with ease. "The divorce papers were filed yesterday. You have no legal right to." With my phone filming everything, I walked into the doorway and asked, "To prevent us from?" "Breaking and entering, destruction of property, conspiracy." With the exception of Helen, they all froze like guilty kids. She flashed her sly smile. "Perfect timing, dear, we were just discussing the Anderson case and other family matters." I walked deeper into the room with Evan right behind me and said, "I can see that. But you made one mistake, Helen. You got sloppy. Desperate." She responded, "I don't know what you mean," as her voice became more strained. "The Anderson case was never about property fraud, was it? It was about covering up what really happened. What you did." Her smile faltered. "You're confused." Adding, The real documents aren't behind that safe. I looked into Ryan's astonished eyes and said, they're already with the district attorney. Along with proof that your mother embezzled millions from her own charity foundation. That's why she's so desperate to find evidence against my family, to protect herself. Chaos ensued in the room. Ryan stood motionless between them all as Helen reached for her lawyer and Khloe began to scream. However, I continued to watch Helen as her idyllic environment fell apart. Retaliation isn't always about ruining someone. Allowing them to ruin themselves is sometimes the solution. And sometimes speaking the truth is enough to bring about justice. My living area was painted in alternating shades of blue and red by the police lights. As she talked to the authorities, Helen sat primly on the couch, tears running down her flawlessly applied face. She pointed to me and wept. She's the one who's been hurting our family. I was just trying to protect my son. We have evidence of her harassment, Morton said with ease. Her obsession with destroying her mother-in-law's reputation. The break-in was merely an attempt to recover documents that rightfully belonged to the family. The recording of their entrance was no longer useful, and my phone felt heavy in my pocket. Like Helen always did, they had gone ahead of me and completely changed the situation. That isn't true, Ryan exclaimed abruptly. Everybody looked at him. Mother, stop, just stop. Helen's weeping stopped at once. Ryan, dear, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. He moved away from her and in my direction, but I retreated. Too late, too little. The embezzlement accusations, they're true, aren't they? Asked Ryan. That's why you've been so desperate to destroy Audrey's family's reputation, to cover your tracks. Everything I did was for this family, Helen stated. Her mask fell off entirely. She pointed a finger at me and threatened to destroy everything. That money secured your future, your sister's future, she said. The officers looked at each other. He heard someone talking into his radio. Mrs. Helen Miller, we're going to need you to come down to the station. This is ridiculous. I'm the victim here, she said to Morton, her attorney. Do something. Morton, meanwhile, was already moving in the direction of the entrance. I think our professional relationship has concluded, Helen, given the circumstances. After that, everything occurred pretty fast. As they led her away, Helen wailed and Khloe followed, complaining about loyalty to her family. The evidence I had acquired was being gathered, recorded, and labeled when Morton escaped during the confusion. Audrey, said Ryan. Don't, I said, putting my arms over myself as I felt icy. Just don't. I didn't know about the charity money, about any of it, I swear. I said, but you knew about the break-ins, the harassment, the lies, and my voice broke. You chose them. Every single time, you chose them. I can fix this? I pointed at our demolished house and said. Fix what? My grandmother's letters are still gone. Our marriage is over. Your mother's going to jail. What exactly can you fix? There was Evan in the doorway. Audrey, the detective needs your statement. Ryan grabbed me by the arm as I tried to pursue him. I love you, he shouted frantically. Isn't that worth something? I remembered every touch, every promise, and every instance when I felt like we were actually creating something as I gazed at his hand on my arm. Then I recalled the last time I saw him pick his mother's falsehoods above my reality, helping them break into our house. I whispered, love without trust isn't love. It's just another form of control. He was standing in the ruins of our life together as I withdrew. The detective waited while filling out more paperwork and asking additional questions. I spent hours describing how I had discovered proof of Helen's embezzlement, how I had recorded her harassment, and how I had seen my marriage gradually deteriorate due to deceit and manipulation. Later, when I was by myself in my car, I took out my grandmother's final letter, not the one Helen had taken, but the authentic one. The one I'd held dear for years. Remember, dear heart, she'd wrote. Sometimes winning means walking away. Sometimes the greatest victory is in refusing to play their game at all. Ryan again buzzed on my phone. I turned off the phone and turned on the engine. He was standing in the doorway of what had been our house, looking lost, and I could see him in the rear-view mirror. My heart grieved for a second, but as I drove away, I came to a realization. I had nearly turned into Helen in my attempt to destroy her. Manipulative, control-obsessed, and prepared to give anything up for success. My grandma had been correct. Taking down Helen wasn't the true victory, it was in releasing myself at last. The corridor of the courthouse was cold and long. While waiting for Helen's arraignment, I watched from a rough wooden seat while her society pals whispered to one another. They were still in shock that the president of their charitable board was being charged with embezzlement 3 weeks after the break-in. With black circles under his eyes, Ryan emerged at the end of the hallway. With her eyes like daggers, Khloe held onto his arm. I pretended to read emails while concentrating on my phone. His voice was closer than I thought. Audrey. Can we talk? I stated, the divorce papers are with your lawyer, without raising my gaze. Just sign them. He sat next to me, too near, and said, that's not. Mother wants to make a deal now. I gave him a look. A deal? If you drop the charges, she'll return all of your grandmother's letters. Bitter than coffee grinds, a giggle erupted. You don't understand, do you? All that matters is that she is still my mother, isn't that right? She made mistakes despite everything she did and everything she stole, so I stood, seeking space. Errors? She terrorized me in my own home, stole millions from her own charity, and methodically destroyed our marriage, I said, turning heads. Ryan, those aren't errors. They are options. Ryan was beckoned by Helen's smile, but before he could react, the doors of the courthouse sprang open, and Evan hurried in with a manila packet in his hand. Breathing heavily, he replied, I found it in Morton's office. With shaky fingers, I opened the envelope to reveal a single document, a letter from Helen to her lawyer dated 3 years prior to my wedding. What is that? Did Ryan ask? I looked through the contents and remarked, insurance. Just in case I ever threatened to take control of you. Helen had orchestrated this whole thing from the start, the harassment, the break-ins, everything, to make me appear crazy and fixated on the Anderson case, so I looked up as she came in handcuffed and accompanied by officers. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in Helen's eyes as they fixed themselves on the letter. Where did that come from? She insisted. I held up the letter and said, Helen, you documented everything. Your lawyer isn't as loyal as you thought. Every stage of your scheme to ruin me. Everyone will now be fully aware of your identity. She rushed forward, but the officers stopped her. You ungrateful little, she said. Stop, Mom, Ryan positioned himself between us and said. Stop. Everything I did was for you, to protect you from her. Helen said, her face crushed. From where? Ryan's voice broke. From emotion? From a life that is beyond your control? She never loved you like I do. Helen said, her eyes hardening. No, I cut him off. I loved him enough to let him make his own decisions. You loved him enough to make sure he never could. The murmurs surrounding us became more intense. Khloe turned away from her mother, finally realizing the truth she had helped facilitate, and Helen's friends stared in horror as their ideal society matron broke before their own eyes. Evan whispered, the arraignment's starting. The district attorney had been quietly waiting nearby, so I gave him the letter before turning to Ryan one more time. I did love you, I replied. But love shouldn't hurt like this. Audrey, please. Goodbye, Ryan. As Helen was escorted into the courtroom, I turned to leave, her well-planned world crumbling in my wake. My grandmother's former legal partner texted me, saying, I found something in the archives. Your grandmother would be proud. My phone rang. The autumn air outside was crisp and clean, and Evan caught up to me at the bottom of the steps leading to the courthouse. You all right? He inquired. As the wind pulled the leaves away from their limbs, I saw them strewn all over the sidewalk. Sincerely, I replied, no, but I will be. Because sometimes defeating your adversaries isn't the only way to win. Refusing to allow them to ruin you is sometimes the key. And sometimes the best form of retaliation is just to walk away with your head held high, and let them deal with the fallout from their own decisions. In contrast to the suburban gloom I had left behind, the lights of downtown glittered through the window as the final box from my previous life stood unopened on the floor of my new apartment. Helen's carefully constructed reputation was shattered like a dropped teacup, and the society pages were already humming with scandal when Evan texted me about her sentencing, 5 years for embezzlement. Ryan was standing in the hallway with a familiar leather-bound bundle, and I froze when I heard a knock at the door. I recognized the pattern. 3 rapid taps, 1 slow. I said, grandmother's letters, with a constricted throat. He held them out as a peace gift and explained, I found them in Mother's study while cleaning out the house. They were always yours. I took the bundle and traced the tattered edges with my fingers. How is she? He shrugged, saying, angry, bitter. She's in therapy. She claims to be beginning to comprehend certain aspects of our family. Along with you. Gaining the ability to stand alone. A painting and easel stood by the window, the canvas half covered in bold strokes of red and gold, something I'd discovered by mistake, a means to pour forth all words couldn't describe. He looked beyond me into the flat. Simply, it helps, I said. Audrey, I don't. As I moved away, I said, We both know why it ended. I understand. You should see, he said, bringing out an envelope containing the signed divorce papers and other items. It contained a 30-year-old newspaper clipping about a young Helen Miller who was frantically attempting to establish her social standing before marrying into a wealthy family. Ryan remarked softly. She was constantly terrified of losing control, of being shown to be inadequate. I now understand what she did, but I'm not condoning it. Understanding doesn't make it right. No, but it helps me not become her. Somewhere in the metropolis below, a siren screamed. Where I used to cringe at the sound, now it served as a reminder that life moves on, changes, and evolves. I told myself, I never wanted revenge, in shock at the reality. I just wanted to be free. I understand. You won because of that. He started to walk away but stopped. The picture. It's stunning. I opened the bundle of letters after he departed, and while my grandmother's words flowed across the pages, describing her strength, her courage to confront bullies, and her courage to choose integrity over retaliation, one piece, written shortly before her death, struck my attention. Because they are afraid of their own darkness, some people will attempt to dull your light, dear heart. You have more power if you keep shining than if you resist them. Not every story needed a tidy ending, and sometimes victory wasn't in killing or even forgiving your enemies, but rather in finding who you truly were without them. I grabbed up my brush and added blue touches to the canvas. My phone buzzed once more, and Evan was inviting me to dinner. No date yet, but perhaps someday. For the time being, friendship was sufficient, and I had my freedom, my truth, and my work. In my previous life, I would have perceived danger in the shadows created by the flickering city lights, but now I see opportunities, patterns, and untold stories. The canvas was waiting, the night was young, and I picked up another brush. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely free, not because Helen had lost, not because I had won, but because I had finally understood the difference between emancipation and retribution. And I discovered who I was in that disparity. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.